at the beginning. You guys can come off mute now and let's get started. Introduce yourselves and just tell us a little bit about yourself, Greg.
Hey, Greg Bone. I am one of the training advisors at the Personnel Board and looking forward to having this discussion today.
Absolutely. Hey, Kim.
Hey, everybody. I'm Kimberly Robinson, and I am also one of the training advisors at the Personnel Board. And yes, let's talk about critical thinking.
We have to decide if we're even critical thinkers. We were talking about this earlier and should we even be leading this? Because we all want to be critical thinkers and be really good at this. And it's, it challenges all of us every now and then. Comments and questions. All right, so let's get started with just basic definitions and basic overview, because you all kind of jump in here with me and let me know your thoughts. When we're talking about skills that leaders need, or skills that supervisors need, or skills that managers need, we're seeing a lot of stuff around emotional intelligence. We're seeing a lot of stuff around computer skills and Microsoft Office and kind of all that. But we're seeing a lot more of this thing called critical thinking. Are you guys seeing that? Are you people seeing that? And if so, why do you think organizations want us to be more critical thinkers? Greg, you can take a shot at that.
Yeah, I think the ability to problem solve and not have that leader do everything, or have to solve every problem, or come up with every solution, or be the person to always be the forward thinker. I think that's one of the skills that leaders are looking for. How can I delegate to somebody else that could be one of those, solution givers in that area, in that department? So I think critical thinking is one of those areas that every organization is looking for, just to help their team become better.
And let me go ahead and give you one of many definitions, Kim, but before you jump in here, and you can find these on Google, you can find your own definition of critical thinking, but it's a mode of thinking about any type, a situation, a person, a problem, in which the thinker is going to skillfully analyze, assess it, reconstruct it, process it, and come out with a different answer. So it's very self-directed, it's very internal, and it takes a little more time than just most of the time we're like, well, let me think. Okay, here's the answer. Well, let me think. Well, here's the answer. Well, let me think. Critical thinking is you got to take in a whole bunch of information. So, Kim, do you think that's important too for managers and leaders today?
Absolutely. I think it's very important. And I think, the whole purpose of critical thinking is, we need our leaders to make better decisions. And how do we get those positive results from those better decisions that we're making? And so, like Greg said, training our teams to be able to make those decisions on their own and go through that critical thinking process, because it totally is a process. And just being able to look at things from different angles and make sound decisions, and not just decisions off the top of your head.
Absolutely. And, we don't want to get political at all today, but if you're ever looking for a way to improve your critical thinking skills, just look at any situation today in politics. Take a look at any situation, whether it's voting rights, whether it's social justice, whether it's fairness, whether it's inflation, whether it's whatever. You're going to come in with your information right away and make a big decision. Critical thinker is going to stop back, no matter what it is, and look at each situation individually and not kind of lump them all together. So part of the question we have here is why. And I found this article on a college website that talks about how a lot of times in college, that's how you get better grades. You're taught to be a critical thinker. If you just regurgitate the textbook and just memorize and throw it out, you might get a C or a B, but it's those that kind of think and process and what if, and could it be this, and is it chicken or the egg, or is it egg or the chicken, and let's take all the information. And so here's 4 points that I found interesting about why we should all be critical thinkers. Number one, it helps us develop intellectually. It helps us get smarter. So it's very easy for us, right, to be raised up in our own ways, with our own culture, with our own parents, with our own grandparents, with our own decisions. But does that really make us smarter if we don't look at things from a different point of view? What do you think about that, Greg?
I think observation is a big component of critical thinking.
Yeah.
You know, the ability to predict what's going to happen, the ability to take in, you know, the different sources of information and come up with alternatives that we sit there and say, well, yeah, you know, we could take a little bit of this and a little bit of that and come up with a solution or provide, you know, just a different way to think about the issues that each of our departments are having. And I think one of the things that every organization is looking for is that leader that thinks outside of the box, not just, all right, this is the way that we've been doing it, it's canned answers, but be innovative in their problem solving.
Yeah, especially in local government, right, Kim? I mean, if there's ever a place to be a critical thinker, you know.
Absolutely.
It's definitely here.
Definitely in government.
Kim, let me ask you this. It helps you make hard decisions. This person says that, you know, the easy decisions come from just regular thinking, but the hard decisions, you got to be critical in your thinking. So, you know, when we have hard decisions we have to make, it sounds like it's better to take more time and look at all the options rather than just, you know, jump in.
Absolutely. And it goes back to what Greg said with those alternatives. What are some and for me, it's pulling out that emotional element and my emotional feelings and saying, what are some alternatives? Yeah. And then making a rational decision from those alternatives. But, you know, those hard decisions, absolutely. You need to think critical on those hard decisions because if you depend on your emotions and you know, your biases, then you're going to probably make a wrong decision. But being able to choose, you know, from those, make that rational decision.
Absolutely. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there. This one really jumped out at me. People can and will manipulate you. And I hadn't thought about that because when we think about being a critical thinker, we talk a lot about leadership and about this. But this person says here, if you take everything at face value and allow others to think for you, look at all the ads for miracle pills or diet drugs, or this will happen in 2 days, you know. And so, you know, we've all heard from our parents and grandparents, you know, if it looks too good to be true,
it is.
It probably is. But and I've got a great example. And I just thought of this right now. Do you all remember, and I've told my team this, remember it was about a year ago when all of the, there was a lot of scandals around gift cards and people were buying gift cards, selling the PIN cards, sending them out. Well, I actually somehow got on a mailing list where someone said, hey, we want you to be part of our research team. Will you please go? We're going to give you some money, go buy some gift cards and give us the PIN code so we can go out and do blah, blah, blah. In a priority mail envelope from a company came this check to me for $1,900 to go buy gift cards. And so part of me, I'm like, this has got to be real. Who would make a big, and I took it home and my wife's like, let's cash it, baby. I'm like, let's talk about it, you know, and because now they're going to have my home information, my address and all this. And of course it ended up being a scam, but we've got to be real careful because we can be manipulated in like car sales, in, you know, things like that. Where else can people take advantage of us if we don't think about things critically?
Especially in advertisement. I think you hit it when you said advertisement, you hit the nail on the head because, I mean, look at all these commercials and they're like, here's a miracle drug or here's this. All you have to do is pay $19.99. And I've been looking at that Peloton commercial like every day. I'm like, I got to get this bite. But then because you're going to
look just like those people after just a couple of rides there.
And they're going to be calling my name. Come on, Kimberly, you can do it. And I'm going to lose all this weight. But my husband helped me to think critically and say, now listen, how many times are you going to ride it? You got to pay for those classes. They're like $500 extra from the bike. So you have to really go through that process in your mind before you are manipulated and you jump in.
So hopefully that gives you some good reasons that we all need to be critical thinkers. So now let's talk about the skills. Greg, we'll start with you, throw some of these out there. And you touched on one a little early. If you want to be a critical thinker, you have to be curious.
Yeah.
And I think you mentioned observation. Tell us a little bit more about what goes into just being curious.
Yeah, being curious, asking why. Why do we want to do this, or why is this issue continuing to come up, and what happens if we solve this problem, and what's going to be the effects down the road, or does my department have everything it needs, for 5 years from now, or what is business coming into, this particular department going to look like, in the next 2 years, and where should the resources, all of those questions go into the leader having some critical thinking and problem solving skills to be able to anticipate it. And so the observation is my ability to take all of those things in and prepare my team for success, whether it's a month from now or 5 years from now. And I think that's one of the skill sets that all leaders should demonstrate to be able to move to the next level.
Yeah, Kim, well, some of the questions that come up in being curious can put people off. So if you're a real critical thinker and somebody says something to you, a good pushback would be, well, how do you know that? Or where do you get your information? Or tell me, is that gonna tick some people off that we don't trust them at face value? Or is that's an okay thing, right? Because we have to
well, it is okay, but it probably will tick some people off because we're just not trained to think critically. I mean, come on, think about it. So if you're asking me, well, why do we do that? And why, which you need to ask to get a good understanding. And that's what being curious means. You're asking the why, and you're not asking to be smart. You want to know. But yeah, I think it may tick some people off, but I think it's just, we need to do it.
We need to ask those questions, right, Greg?
Yeah, we do. And I think that prepares the person that's just coming in, with that statement to go back and really do some due diligence on their own so that they just they don't just sit there and take everything for face value, that they've done a little bit of homework on their own to
absolutely
have a better understanding.
And we'll again, we're not going to get too political today, but masks is probably non-political. But I mean, if you were to come to me and say, masks do more harm than good, or if I come to you and say, masks save lives, both people are going to see that their point is right. And my point in the same being curious is maybe saying, well, tell me where you get your information from, or tell me where you got that. Because again, that's, because both could be true. And depending on, and Kim mentioned biases, and we'll get to biases in just a second. We really need to make sure that we, listen to all sides. Hey, real quick, Persephone's on with us today. Kendra, EJ, thank you for joining us. Got some good comments on here. Taria says, great point, Kimberly Robinson. Yeah, so good. Lots of good stuff. So thank you all for watching. Thank you all for watching today. All right, so the next step, the next skill we need to be a good critical thinkers, to be flexible. Now, when I say be flexible, I say things like be open to new information, be open to accepting new things, be open to evaluating the evidence, and being flexible also means that we may have to admit that we're wrong. Greg, how does that challenge us from being a critical thinker?
I think it helps us because when we're open to and being flexible, we receive information from a number of different areas. We may have a limited view of a particular subject, and somebody's coming in that may have more information, or may have a side that we've never experienced, or maybe working in an area where we didn't know anything about. And so our ability to be flexible and see it from that person's point of view can help us broaden our skill set. Yeah. But if we're dogmatic or dig our feet in and stay within our lane and our own experiences, then I think we minimize our growth potential in this particular area.
Absolutely, Greg.
That's a great point. Being open to other people's views, Kim, is going to help us, right, as we try to think differently.
Absolutely. Yeah. We have to realize that we don't know everything, and somebody knows a little more than you. And they're coming from, we didn't all grow up in the same house, so they're coming from different experiences, different background. So they may have some information that we need. But when we talk about being flexible, it's like Greg said, be open and be able to admit, man, I didn't realize that.
Right.
I'm wrong.
Even if
You
we
taught
don't
me
agree.
something. Even if you don't agree, but you know what? You taught me something. You helped me see things in a different light. And I think if we start having these conversations with everything going on in our world and just being flexible and saying, well, where are you coming from? And trying to understand where people are coming from and why they're saying what they're saying.
Mm-hmm.
I think like Greg said, it doesn't hurt us, it helps us.
See, and one of the things that we've got to come to grips with as critical thinkers is our job is not to get the right answer. Like a lot of times, you know, we're not, who's right and who's wrong. The goal isn't really to get the right answer. The goal is to get the information so that we can make the best solution for this situation, not right versus wrong. And that's hard for a lot of us because a lot of us don't like to be told that we're wrong. There was this story or just an example about if someone says, hey, this, I don't know, you all give me the most sugary cereal you can think of. Well, would it be like when I was growing up, it was Sugar Smacks when I was growing up with the frog or, you know, something. So what if someone comes out and says, hey, there's a study out that says this sugary cereal is good for you. And you're like, okay. And so you look and they show you the study and, you know, 9 out of 10 people recommended that you should eat Sugar Smacks for breakfast every day, whatever. And you're like, well, there it is. But critical thinking to tell you what, let me be a little flexible. Let me be a little curious. Let me ask some more questions. And then you find out, oh, it was a sugar company that did the study that proved this. So even though the data was there, critical thinkers are getting all, and again, not to prove them right or wrong, but just to find out so that when your kids are saying, please buy me 100 boxes of this, I got a study to show you this is good. This is good for me. You know, you've done your research on that, which I think is important for us. So, you know, being flexible is good. How about analytical, y'all? Oh, I'm sorry. Did I skip one? Oh, I put down. Let me sort of take this off and talk about what's called be self-aware. Be self-aware. You all teach the Johari window in all of our stuff. And if you all haven't looked this up, it's spelled Johari. And it's all about your blind spots. So Kimber, Greg, tell a little bit about this idea of blind spots and how it can hurt us as leaders.
And, you know, we all have them.
Right.
And it's, you know, it reminds me of driving a car. And I drive a SUV and those mirrors, I can look in those mirrors and I think I see on the side of me. And then I go to pull in the next lane. I almost hit somebody because they were in my blind spot. And so we all have them and it's, you know, people see them, but we don't see it ourselves. And so this is huge, especially for leaders when, you know, especially being a critical thinker, we have those blind spots and just being self-aware that you may not see them, but others around you, they're looking dead at them. They see them. They're out in the open. So that's where also being flexible to say, well, I didn't see that. Tell me what you see. Tell me where you're coming from. Again, that flexibility is huge.
Yep. I totally agree. Go ahead.
And the importance of having people around you on your team who cover that blind spot for you. And so that having that trusted person that can say, well, you know, I recognize that this is your blind spot, but I can see what's happening. And they come from and they bring different information from a different point of view. And so being able to listen to that person and candidly be able to take that information in as part of your observation and your analysis helps you to become an even better leader, you know, by trusting that person who can see that blind spot, who can tell you, hey, you know, that's something you got to be aware of. So I think we've got that self-awareness is key, regardless of where we are, but we have to have trusted people around us who can inform us to help us become better in that area.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Michael says in the comments, he says, we are better than me 100% of the time. So again, when you get partners, when you get people that kind of come in and help you. Now, what analytical means, our final skill set here, as you're going to be a critical thinker, is we've got to do better at gathering data. You know, I mean, it was a joke early on when people would say, oh, it's on the internet, it must be real, you know, but believe it or not, there are still people that, you know, will find one data point or 2 data points. And where did you get it? You know, when we all went to college, when you wrote papers, they had to be refereed journals and they had to be, you know, all these things. And now you can just find an article written for People magazine by someone with an agenda and take that. So when we're looking for data as critical thinkers, we need to find the right amount of data, the right quantity of data, the right stuff to kind of back us up. So you guys agree that having more and better data and learning how to analyze that can help us be better critical thinkers.
Absolutely. Yeah. You can't depend just on Wikipedia to, you know, and say, oh my gosh, they said it, so that it's got to be it. You can't be lazy and be a critical thinker. It takes work.
That's a very good point.
It really does. And gathering all the data and researching and finding the facts and not feelings, it's huge.
Yeah. And most people stop at the first page of Google. You know, whatever comes up in that top 10 search feed, that's all they look at. They never go to page 100, where sometimes the real information is.
Right.
And then the interpreting of the data, you know, so I can have all this information at my fingertips, but if I don't know how to interpret it, I still may get the wrong answer or analyze it different, you know, or still stay stuck in my single point of view.
Yep.
So the interpretation of the analysis is key as well.
Absolutely.
I have a friend that loves WebMD. And it's like, oh my gosh, this happened to me. I got to go on WebMD. And she's just always what is the word?
Self-diagnosing.
Self-diagnosing herself. And I'm like, no, you don't just depend on WebMD.
There's others.
You need to go to the doctor, go to a professional that has this information, not just on web. Well, these are real doctors on WebMD. How do you know that?
Yeah, but you can put in whatever you want on WebMD, and it'll tell you you've got X, Y,
that
Z.
That is not critical thinking.
No, that's not a good critical thinking skill. And this one comes to mind for me as we talk about these skills of being analytical and being curious and being flexible. Something as simple for y'all as like heading back to the workplace. All right. So some people are remote, some are hybrid, some are coming back in, and people will start saying things about their organizations, not just about remote work, but my organization doesn't care about me. This is a horrible place to work. Blah, blah, blah. And if you're a critical thinker, you'll go back and look, well, what's happened over the past year? What flexibility was there? So before you come out and try to say, let's get as much information, let's collect some data, around all these different things. So that can be anything from your workplace to a social group that you're in. Oh, I hate my church. I don't like my church anymore. Why? Well, they never do anything for the community. Well, let me go back. Let's list all the things that we've given in the, so I mean, you really have to be analytical. You got to be curious to ask the right questions, and you have to be flexible.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's finish up with our mistakes. So these are things, y'all, that are going to get us in trouble, that are going to prevent us from being good critical thinkers. So rationalization is the first one, and I'll just throw this out there and let you guys run with it. What rationalization means is I know what I want the answer to be, so I'm going to go out and collect whatever data I can to back it up. I know that Joe Biden was a better choice than Donald Trump, so I'm going to go to all the sites and collect what I need to validate that point. I know that masks are good versus you saying they're not, so I'm going to go. So tell us about rationalization. Why is that not a good way to start the critical thinking process?
You end up, for me, I'm just thinking about you end up just supporting your thought and what you're thinking.
Yeah.
And again, you're not allowing yourself to be flexible and open to another idea. Yeah. You believe that Joe Biden is the best candidate. So again, all your information is going to be about Joe Biden, but you're not going to see, well, what are the pros and the cons?
Mm-hmm.
What is the good and the bad? So you have to look at all the information and not just the information that supports your right.
Yeah.
And so rationalization will get you in a lot of trouble.
Yep.
Yeah, like Michael just said in the comment, he said it's a narrow mindset.
Narrow, absolutely.
It's extremely narrow. You're excluding everybody else's opinion, all other facts. You're just throwing everything else out, to make sure that you're right, basically.
Right.
So,
and you'll see this on Facebook posts all the time where, someone will say something about a political figure and then someone will come back. Well, that's just a one-time deal. Or they'll say something about somebody else and go, yeah, but they weren't feeling well that day. And then somebody says something else. And it's just, I'm not going to let you say a trait that I dislike about this person. I'm going to rationalize where the reality may be, well, maybe this is a real thing, but it doesn't jive with what I want to believe. Yeah. And again, critical thinkers aren't trying to be right or wrong. They're trying to get all the information
absolutely
to be the best possible solution for whatever issue it'll be. And the next thing that comes into that, y'all, is our emotions.
Yes.
Is emotional thinking. So, things like just emotional based words. And I know I'm throwing y'all on the spot here, but what are some that are used either on Facebook or in marketing, or what's in the news today? What are these emotional based words? One just popped in my mind, so I'll do this one. Crisis. Are we allowed to call things that are happening at the border a crisis or not? Because that's an emotional based word. If it's a situation, if it's a tendency, but we're not going to. And so because it gets our emotions. What are some other emotional based words that like you can think about that's sort of aligning with, or I guess, how do these words hit your emotions? And if you're in the comments, feel free to throw in some emotion words.
Yeah, I mean, it's liberal or conservative, Pete. Sometimes those start, the biggest fights.
Yep, you're right.
And I mean, just you grab your point of view based on how you think you align with what somebody is saying at that particular point. And rather than taking the information in, or you block certain things, so that's just one that flew off at the top for me.
That's a great point, because again, those used to be descriptor words. Do you lean liberal or do you lean conservative? Now they're emotional based words because they don't align with my way of thinking. So you must be wrong. I can't even start a conversation with you and get more detail because the words become emotionally charged. So very, very good one.
I like what Michael said in the comments. He said that's why media is so big, and he's right.
Oh,
emotional thinking. It has made media just huge because it's so much emotion, and it knows how, when you think about people being 80% emotional, 20% logic, they know how to draw us in and get us to thinking their way, and it's all emotional.
Right. And we're not good critical thinkers when we're angry. When you get angry, someone talked bad about your mama or something like that. When you get angry, it's hard to have a critical thinking process to it. And you think about this in the schools growing up, and whether it's school or sports or bullying or things like that, I think the coach is giving me some good feedback that I should probably work in the weight room more. And let me see, because that'll help. And you do this whole, that's not happening. All they're doing is yelling, getting your emotions up. So, I quit. I just quit.
That's the wrong time to have any type of critical thinking, critical conversation, any of that. Because when you're angry, all of that's out the door. It's your emotions that have taken over at that point. So that's why critical thinkers, they are self-aware. That's where that self-awareness comes in. And you have control.
It's very easy. It's very easy to say, let's separate facts from feelings and just work on that. But that is easier said than done. Easier said
than done.
We're
80% emotional, of course. I mean, 20% logic, 80% emotional.
So again, I'm not saying that it can't be done, but I think we're all agreeing that if we want to be good critical thinkers, and just to be totally transparent, we have a very diverse training team where we work, different age, race, sex, gender, all of that. Absolutely. And there's times we have very open and honest discussions among our team, and we all have to use these skills because we all don't agree on everything. We have different points of view, but we're really good, kind of like Michael said, about listening and about processing and about taking in information so we can have open and honest discussions. And that's one thing I like about our team. All right. One more is our biases. Or is it biases? Is it biases or biases? I think I sent you all a couple of these: confirmation bias, hindsight bias, recency bias. You want to comment on any of those, or do you have a favorite among them? or do you even know what they are? Did you read the email?
Yes. Go ahead, Greg.
Greg, talk about recency bias. What is, because that one's self-explanatory.
We all have biases, and I think the issue is that most people are challenged by what they believe, and instead of being open and honest about it, we try to cover it up so that we think we're not biased, and then that becomes the explosive issue, because now I'm being challenged about my belief, and instead of just saying, well, hey, I'm open to different points of view.
Yep.
I'm just, I'm trying to prove, or going back to that rationale, I'm trying to prove my way is right.
Yeah.
Right.
So I know I didn't answer the question.
No, but I mean, that's one of those biases where, they're like deeply embedded inside. And, here's an example. I mean, if someone changes religions, all of a sudden they say, well, I was raised this, but now I'm this. There's so many biases that you've been told about other denominations or other ways to think, and to try to tell yourself and hear that you've got all these built-in things about different groups and different biases. The one that I sort of threw out at you, recency bias, just means that I'm only going to make decisions on critical thinking based on what I've seen recently. So if I see a bad act by a police officer in the news recently, that means that this is how I'm going to think about it. We haven't heard a whole lot about X in the news in the past 2 years, so I haven't thought about it. As soon as it pops up, oh yes, this does bother. So, it happens for us as leaders too, as we're giving performance appraisals. We talk about this in our training classes. You have to consider the entire year of an employee, not just, well, they've been really good this past day, month, year.
And hindsight is, it's just the same as, what happened in the past, that makes all the decisions for you. So, this happened to me 20 years ago or 10 years ago or whatever. So now that's what I believe, and that's how I make my decisions. But again, we're talking about mistakes. That's a huge mistake, because just because that happened 5 years ago, even last week, what's happening now? And let's look at the whole thing. And you have to realize that people's experiences are their experiences. And so we're not discounting or saying that doesn't matter, but we're not just going to look at that past experience, but we're going to look at the whole, like you said, the whole life cycle of the employee.
We used to
make the decision on that.
We used to show this really uncomfortable video in our diversity training class here. And I being virtual, we probably haven't shown it in a while, but there's this woman who's like, she goes, you can't trust these people. I lived next door to them once. They stole my bike.
Right.
So, because that may have happened 25 years ago, now we've got a bias. And so again, it's hard to be a critical thinker. Michael says in the chat, we all have biases. So stop, engage your brain, and then make a responsible decision, which I thought was interesting. There's also hindsight bias, again, because we always go, well, in hindsight, I would have done this, or in hindsight, I would have done that. Well, if you would have taken more time at the beginning to be a critical thinker, we wouldn't have this. And again, not all circumstances are identical. Everybody has, different experiences. So those are our mistakes. Our mistakes are, what were they? Our mistakes are rationalization, emotional thinking, and biases. Yep. There they are. Emotional thinking was one, biases was one. And then the ways to be a critical thinker, y'all: be curious, be flexible, be analytical, be self-aware as well. So we're at about the 34-minute mark. Let's take some closing thoughts. Kim, just help everybody, both of you give your points on why critical thinking, after hearing all this, is just something good that we all should be striving towards.
Well, again, I think the purpose of of critical thinking is coming to that best decision, or what is a good decision. And in order to do that, you have to be curious. You have to be flexible.
Yep.
You have to gather all the facts. And so you have to be analytical. And it just, again, as I said before, you just can't be lazy and be a critical thinker.
Yep.
You can't take the easy way out. It's going to cause you to have to make some hard decisions. But in the long run, it helps you to be even just a better thinker, period, because it helps you to be open and to be, like we said, flexible. And my way is not the only way, but I have a team of people around me that can help me make decisions, and I can see their point of view. So I would encourage us not to be closed and, not to, again, just think our way is the only way, because it really isn't. And being a critical thinker will help us to see the world from others' perspective.
Yep. Okay. Greg, your thoughts on critical thinking?
This is a skill set we have to continue to develop. I think whether you're in leadership position, you have the title, or you're on the team, you have a responsibility to everybody around you to develop this skill set. I mean, there's never going to be a time where you're not going to have to problem solve, whether it's at work or at home. There's never going to be a time where we don't have to communicate effectively about what we receive.
Mm-hmm.
There's never going to be a time where, we don't have to take in information and make a decision. So I think this skill set is important, especially for those that want to move to a leadership position.
Yeah.
The better you are at solving problems, the better you are at having this critical thinking skill, it enables you to deliver on some of the things your organization may have been missing out on. Yep. So we've got to develop it every chance we have.
That was a great closing point, because the one point that I didn't make in that article from college, it says being a critical thinker makes you more employable. The best employees not only know how to solve existing problems, they know how to come up with solutions to problems no one had thought about. And in closing, if you ever want to see non-critical thinking, go to any sports game where people are fans of a team.
Yeah.
For some reason, the referee's going to get it wrong every time if you're a fan of the team, because you don't think, there's no critical thinking involved. Like you said, Kim, when there's emotions involved. And everyone knows, and even if they show it was pass interference, you're going to rationalize it. Well, that was a makeup call. Well, that was, it's a great place to watch non-critical.
Little league, anything.
Little, it's like if you got kids, little league and all that, there's no fan base for critical thinking. Hey, y'all, Greg, Kimberly, that was great. If you're watching us live, thank you so much. Tell your friends. Follow us on Personnel Board of Jefferson County Facebook page, and we'll continue to do these and our trainer talks and our lunchtime learning blast to help you all get better. So it's been a great talk. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you. We'll see you next time.
Yes.
Thanks. All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.